started weed when I was 12, and then I worked up to like acid and coke when I was like 14. And then when I was 15, a pimp picked me up, and I just kind of fed my addiction from there.
When the sun sets on America's cities, another world quietly wakes up. It doesn't glow with neon signs or skyline lights. It flickers beneath bridges, along train tracks, and behind forgotten buildings where the unseen live lives that most of us pass by without a second glance. They call them the homeless, but that word barely scratches the surface. These are the invisible after-midnight men, women, and children surviving in the blind spot of the richest nation on earth. Once,
that disease, that struggle, it's real, and the demons were eating me alive, and that shit, it's hard. It's so hard.
this country promised a roof for every worker, a meal for every child, and dignity for every citizen. But over the decades, those promises faded into the background noise of economic growth and political speeches. What began as temporary hardship for a few has turned into permanent exile for millions. The tents that line city sidewalks aren't just symbols of poverty. They're tombstones for the American dream.
You know, you go to regular shelters, and there's people that stay awake all night fighting. All they want to talk about is drugs. All they do is steal from people that are asleep, and so nobody wants to sleep in these shelters.
Walk through downtown Los Angeles after midnight, and you'll see what progress looks like when it forgets its people. Rows of makeshift shelters stretch for blocks, stitched together from tarps, cardboard, and hope. In New York, families sleep in subway stations as commuters step over them on their way to work. In Chicago, the wind cuts through thin blankets like knives. In Seattle, it rains, and still, the tents stay up because they have nowhere else to go.
2 years.
So I got laid off from that job, and then I needed to move and find a cheaper place because I couldn't afford a place anymore.
This wasn't always America's story. Decades ago, working-class neighborhoods thrived on steady jobs and modest wages. A man could clock out of a factory and come home to a house he owned. A woman could raise her children knowing there'd be food on the table. But when the factories closed, stability collapsed with them. Automation, outsourcing, and greed hollowed out the middle class. The people who built the cities were left stranded in them, and what followed wasn't just economic decline, it was abandonment dressed up as policy.
And I've been here ever since.
Lost my job, lost my lease, and then I blew the engine in my truck.
Every generation since has paid the price for those decisions. As jobs vanished, survival replaced security. The rent went up, wages stayed down, and one missed paycheck became a sentence. The banks called it foreclosure. The landlords called it eviction. The government called it transition. But the people living it call it a life without walls, without rest, and without the privilege of being seen.
I do under-the-table jobs, like do work for whatever they need me. Like I used to work at a mechanic store down the street from here, so just cleaning up.
In cities like San Francisco, homelessness is no longer an exception. It's part of the landscape. The city that sells billion-dollar startups can't seem to afford affordable housing. Developers build luxury towers while families live in cars parked a few blocks away. Politicians promise solutions in front of cameras, but the people sleeping under freeways never see them return. America spends billions managing homelessness, but almost nothing ending it. Because for every new program announced, another budget cut follows quietly behind.
People need to be aware of how desperate, how many people are on the street compared to when I first came out here and how many there are now. There's so many more.
They say homelessness is a choice that people just need to get jobs or try harder. But that's a fantasy built for the comfortable. No one chooses to sleep on cold pavement. No one chooses to live where safety and privacy don't exist. For many, it starts with something small, a lost job, a medical bill, a landlord who raises rent by $400 overnight. And once you fall through the cracks, climbing back up becomes nearly impossible. The system isn't broken. It's built like this.
And so all the resources are being sucked up. I mean, immediately. There's nothing extra. If you're not right there, Johnny on the spot, you're out of luck.
The streets don't discriminate. Veterans who fought for this country now fight to stay warm. Seniors who worked their whole lives now stand in soup kitchen lines. Teenagers, kicked out for who they are, trade sleep for survival. Families huddle in cars, hoping no one sees them. When you strip away the stereotypes, you see it clearly. Homelessness isn't a fringe issue. It's the mirror image of a society that values profit more than people.
41% of veterans displaced by sweeps missed at least one dose of vital prescriptions within 72 hours. Worsening conditions like diabetes, hypertension, and PTSD.
And when the system fails, cities respond with force instead of compassion. They call it cleanup operations, as if human beings are trash to be swept away. Police officers dismantle tents, throw away belongings, and move people from one block to another, all for the illusion of order. The streets look clear for a day, then fill again by nightfall. Because you can't arrest poverty. You can't evict trauma. You can't fix inequality with a bulldozer.
Detox didn't help. Look at how much good it's done in the last 20 years.
Yo! And now I'm getting arrested because I want my...
In some cities, the cruelty hides behind bureaucracy. Shelters are full, waiting lists are endless, and the rules are strict. No pets, no partners, no privacy. Many would rather brave the streets than trade freedom for confinement. The result is a population surviving in the shadows, where survival means staying invisible enough to avoid trouble, but visible enough to find help. It's a delicate balance that no human should have to learn.
My name is Dina. I've been out here about 3 months now.
Healthcare is another barrier that keeps people trapped. For the wealthy, a medical emergency is an inconvenience. For the poor, it's a death sentence. One broken bone can cost a home. One prescription can cost a paycheck. America's healthcare system doesn't just fail the homeless, it creates them. And once you're outside the system, getting back in feels like trying to climb a wall that keeps growing higher.
Or another becomes homeless, that means you're less likely to get a job. Less likely to get a job, no medical insurance. That means that if you do have any underlying problems, they're not going to be looked after because you're not going to pay for it. Maybe you turn to drugs, that makes the mental health problems worse, and it just becomes a spiral.
Still, in the middle of all this despair, there are those who refuse to give up. Outreach workers, volunteers, and ordinary citizens spend their nights walking through alleys and underpasses with blankets, food, and words of kindness. They're the quiet heroes. No one films the ones who remind people they still matter. Nonprofits open mobile clinics. Churches turn basements into shelters. Some cities experiment with housing first programs, giving people keys before lectures, and it works. When people have homes, they rebuild their lives. It's that simple, and somehow still controversial.
We see up to 200 people in one time frame. That's a lot of people. A lot of people who need toiletry packs and, underwear. Basic items that we would never even think about.
But compassion alone can't carry a broken system. Real change needs courage, political, social, and moral. It needs leaders willing to treat homelessness not as a stain on their cities, but as a symptom of decades of neglect. The truth is uncomfortable. America has the resources to solve this crisis. It just doesn't have the will. It's easier to fund walls than homes, to build prisons than clinics, to blame the victims than fix the cause. If you believe that story deserves to be told louder, hit subscribe, because silence is how systems like this survive.
They're just like years ago, we used to say a person is on drugs, you're attacking the symptoms, you're not attacking the problem. And the problem is, I have an ID problem.
Each statistic in a report is a person with a story. A mother who lost her job and couldn't keep up with rent. A veteran whose trauma turned into silence. A teenager who aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. A senior who chose between medication and rent and lost both. These are not failures of character. They're failures of policy. Even amid the ruins, humanity persists. People share food, guard each other's tents, and watch over strangers' belongings.
And because of my ID problem, I can't get my Social Security that I earned. Well, I see other kids running around 20 years old, they're getting $700, $800, up to $1,200 in California for SSI because they're playing a game.
In the quiet hours before dawn, you can hear laughter from a fire pit under a bridge. It's fragile, fleeting, but it's their proof that hope hasn't fully disappeared. It's the resilience that keeps this story from ending entirely in darkness. Meanwhile, the national conversation drifts. Politicians debate budgets and border walls while millions sleep without one. News channels flash headlines about urban decay, but few ask why it exists. They talk about crime, sanitation, and clean streets, yet never mention the rent that doubled or the wages that didn't.
For me to find places to sleep, even in the wintertime, on the sidewalks, behind cars and stuff like that, where they can't see you, where the visibility is down.
Homelessness is treated like a virus instead of the byproduct of a system designed to leave people behind. Housing has to come first, not temporary shelters or overnight beds, but permanent homes. You can't rebuild your life while living in survival mode. Studies show that giving people stable housing cuts emergency costs, reduces overdoses, and rebuilds communities. But instead of funding housing, cities spend millions criminalizing those without it. It's cheaper to help than to punish, but punishment photographs better.
As soon as you sit down on the ground, they look at you different. I've a lot of my patrons, guys give me money for coming to the bar over here, and a few of them have sat down next to me, and they're like, people look at you different when you sit down here. I said, yeah.
For every success story, 10 more fall. A man finally gets housing after years on the street, but another family is evicted the same day. Progress exists, but it's fragile, easily undone by rising costs and political apathy. The line between safety and homelessness grows thinner every year, and most Americans don't realize how close they are to it. One illness, one layoff, one rent increase. That's all it takes. The night hides what daylight refuses to see. Under flickering streetlights, a woman wraps herself in a blanket and whispers a prayer.
Now she doesn't even have a door. When she sleeps out here at night, there's also no lights right under here, so it's very dark. And, especially as a woman, that's pretty damn scary. Even if a guy...
A child presses their face against a fogged car window, dreaming of a real bed. An old man ties his shoes tight before sleeping, afraid they'll be stolen. These are the scenes America doesn't film because acknowledging them means admitting failure.